Hello, hello. We are doing a new project inspired by this bunny canvas that was initially done by Courtney from Creative on the Cheap. I did that bunny canvas last Easter, but decided to turn it into a unicorn. So here I'm just measuring my blank and comparing it to Cricut Design Space. And once I have the one I want, I am getting my HTV ready on my mat. And full disclosure, my mat is not very sticky, and my HTV was so tightly wound on the roll that it's not sitting flat. So this nightlight is for my other daughter. Her whole theme in her room is going to be mermaids. So I made that for my daughter's room, and then we're doing this unicorn for my other daughter's room. So full disclosure, this vinyl is 4 years old at least. I bought a big bulk roll of Cricut HTV and I hated it. So we're trying to finish it. I don't want to throw it away, but we're going to see if it works. So this is just a regular canvas that I bought from Michael's, and then we take the staples out and put the canvas on the opposite side to turn it into a reverse canvas like this bunny. And the first step is to remove the staples. Here I've got a heavy duty staple kit from Amazon. It came with a staple gun, the staple remover that I have in my hands, and then it had a few different staples. So along with the staple remover, I also used pliers. It helped to pop them out, but they didn't fully come all the way out until I used pliers for some of them. So I'm showing this Cricut hack. I lifted it up on risers, but I also put a heavy-duty piece of cardstock behind to kind of act as a ramp to feed my mat up instead of straight out into the wall. So I don't ever have to pull the Cricut away from the wall, except when it's cutting stiff material like really heavy cardstock or chipboard. Then I do pull my Cricut out, but otherwise I just let it feed up the wall. This process was pretty tedious. Like I said, I did use pliers for a bunch of them, and I will speed up this video because it's quite cumbersome. But one thing I'll say is you don't have to worry about gouging too deep into the wood, because this will be the side that you also staple once the canvas is flipped and put back on this side. So the nice pretty side will be the side that's face down right now. And then I take a pencil to trace along the outside of the frame to show where I will cut the excess off. As I turn my canvas over, I notice a black smudge, and I'd hoped that the canvas or the HTV would cover it, or at least distract from it, but I couldn't let it go. So I tried to erase it with this white eraser. That wasn't doing it. So then I grabbed this dollar store, it's not an eraser, it's an adhesive eraser. And this thing, let me tell you, is more than its value. It's definitely worth more than $1.25. I didn't erase for maybe a couple seconds and it was gone. This thing is phenomenal. There's one thing you need in your craft room. This is it. Now we're getting the cardstock prepped for the flower. And I turned my Cricut machine on and my daughter heard it starting up. So she came running so she could push the start button. And here she is getting ready to feed it into the machine. And then she's waiting to press the flashing button to start it. And this is for her room, so I'm trying to let her be as part of the process as she can, given her age, but also the project is not something for her to do. But she likes feeling like she's helping. And this whole project is waste not, want not mentality. The cardstock that I'm using right now has a big scratch in front, so I'm hoping that doesn't show. It doesn't end up showing at all with the flower because it's curled so tightly you can't even see the one little scratch. But I also didn't change the blade like I should have. It didn't cut deep enough, so these didn't cut fully through. So here I am trying to separate the waste from the actual flower. And it was kind of tedious. It wasn't that bad, but I should have put it through for another pass. I just didn't even think to hit it again. But as I'm taking it off, I'm realizing that could actually possibly make a good flower too. So what I just threw ended up getting turned into a flower off camera. And I'm just using tweezers to tightly wind the flower. And in doing so, it kind of creates a muscle memory of the paper. So when I let it go, it bounces out a little bit, but it retains a lot of that shape. I have seen people do this with a power drill, and I think that is awesome. That's right up my mentality, my wheelhouse. But I didn't have enough flowers to justify getting it out. If I had to do a ton, then I definitely would. But I just had, I think, like 8 to do or something. So I just used tweezers. I'm also using a low temp glue gun. That way I can press it without burning the bejesus out of my finger, and it hardens pretty quickly. I do have a few other flowers on that canvas that I end up cutting out, but I don't do it on camera. I just wanted to show you the process because it does take a little time per flower. Beautiful. Now this part, I do think that weeding HTV vinyl specifically, is a very satisfying process. But this is a different story. I still think it was a bit satisfying and relaxing, but it's not the experience I would choose. Like I said, StarCraft is my ultimate go-to, but this was a different beast. It's Cricut vinyl, and I have a vendetta against Cricut vinyl. I love their machines, but their material is challenging. In their defense, this vinyl is very old. Like I said, I don't want to throw the whole roll away, so I'm trying to utilize it, but it is showing me a true test of patience. So even this part I've sped up. I'm going to actually speed it up even more. So if you don't want to sit through this, skip ahead or turn the playback speed up or something, but this is, I think it's relaxing, but it is a slow process. I will say it is not normal. Usually weeding HTV or heat transfer vinyl is such an easy process and you don't have to be this careful. This is because my vinyl is so old. Basically, I'm thinking it's garbage at this point, but I'm trying to just get another project out of it just to double check. At the end, spoiler alert, it does end up turning out phenomenal. So I will use this vinyl till I can't anymore. So I guess that's a good testament to Cricut vinyl too, is it might be awful to weed, but 4 years and it's still holding up. I wouldn't put it on a shirt or anything that's going to be used or worn or washed, but this is just going up on a canvas in a room and never being touched, so it won't be messed with. There were some parts that lifted up a little bit during the weeding process and in the heating process, but it was so minimal that I couldn't even go pick it out right now and find those spots. It would be very hard to tell. Here I'm about to take my silicone cup and turn it, and that's because it is a silicone weeding cup for this intention, but the slits, in my opinion, aren't skinny enough. So I've taken an X-Acto knife and made a little slit in one of the sides. That way, when I use my pin pen and put it down all the way down the slit, it catches through that cut that I've made and ends up pulling all the vinyl off. So if I get a tiny thin little piece, it goes through those, just kind of like that one did. It goes through the little slit that was manufactured, but it stays on my pin pen. But when it goes through the nice, very tight cut that I made with the X-Acto knife, it all comes off. I will say I love watching this go from a black blob to seeing such detail lines and precise cuts. Every time I do this, I know what to expect because I've been messing with the design in Cricut Design Space. But once it's actually cut and I'm weeding the lines, it's so mind-blowing to see the precision and the accuracy and the detail. It gets me shocked every time. And here you see a little hand come into the frame. Sophie is chomping at the bit to be like Mom, so I end up giving her a little fake pin pen tool that just has a silicone tip, so she can't actually do anything bad, but she can pretend to be like me. And then she set her hand on mine. It just melted my heart, just the way she did it. It was so precious. Then she got excited and started to try to take the eye off the unicorn, so I had to shoo her hand away. And I am using one of the first generation easy presses. I have a big industrial heat press, but it didn't warrant getting it out to press this little project. So I'm just doing this in a couple different passes. This is set up to be a cool peel, but I just kind of went with where I was in the process. I ended up pressing the bottom, and in my mind that let the top cool enough to start seeing if it would work. In hindsight, while looking, I think I did not press some areas long enough. And you don't want to press too hard, because I have noticed when I press on canvas, the adhesive glue kind of squishes out the sides of the vinyl, so it creates like a ghosting clear line, like a goop line around the edges of the vinyl. It doesn't look terrible from afar, but when you get close and the light catches it, it's definitely a clear, glossy outline. I did end up putting the carrier sheet back on and the Teflon sheet to offer another layer of protection as I did my final press. I just think that if it has too much heat close to it, it ends up scorching it and withering the vinyl, and I don't want to even mess with the possibility of that happening. So I will do 5 presses with the Teflon sheet and the carrier sheet if I can avoid that problem. I didn't have to, but I don't want to scorch my vinyl. Here we're cutting the leaves, and I did end up overlapping the cardstock on top of each other. So I'm again using my scraps, and it got jammed up in the machine. So that's me trying to finagle it out of there. I should have put it back in and have it make another pass, but I tested one area and it looked like it cut all the way through. So I decided to just eject it, and that was a mistake. It wasn't awful, but it did entail some extra TLC. I am playing around with placement of all the leaves on here, and Sophie is so excited to help me. She starts throwing all the scraps onto the canvas, and that's not quite what I want, so I have to pull those off. Nope. Oh, no, thank you. I was trying to get enough greenery to cover up the outline of those flowers. It's not a huge deal because it ended up looking great, but I wanted to try to detract from those harsh black lines, at least where I was going to put the flowers, obviously. I will say this is such an elegant and simple idea on its own without the flowers, but I think the flowers just elevate it and give it more depth and attention and just kind of another dimension or pop of color that you're not expecting. Especially when it reaches out off the frame or onto the frame, it adds a layer that kind of grabs your attention. And then I took my scissors and just skimmed along the sides and cut off all the obvious excess. I could have gone in with an X-Acto knife to be precise, but this is just for my daughter's room and you couldn't see it, so I wasn't trying to make it super perfect. And here we have it, this cute unicorn HTV reverse canvas inspired by Courtney from Creative on the Cheap, and I love it. I love the bunny, love the unicorn, and I'm sure we'll be making a mermaid here soon. Anyway, if you made it till the end, please consider dropping me a like and subscribing to my channel for more future content. Thank you.